Do a little herb walk. So the first herb I want to talk about is mugwort. This lovely one here, also called estafillate. It is, the Latin of this one is Artemisia vulgaris. This plant has so many medicinal qualities, but one of its special magical qualities is that it is a dream plant. It, just by putting it under your pillow, will activate a lot of dreams. Sometimes extremely psychedelic Alice in Wonderland type dreams. It's a pretty bitter plant, so it has a lot of affinity for the digestive system, and it's used traditionally for things like parasites and worms. It is also a very strong plant that affects the womb in people who menstruate, and sometimes just being around the plant will like bring on a moon cycle. So it's also one to be really careful with if you are pregnant or trying to be pregnant, because it also can cause uterine contractions and induce, accidental miscarriage. But mugwort's one of my favorite plants, and its relative, or it's the mugwort that grows here in New Mexico, is right over here. So,
This blue one?
mm-hmm. So this is plant gets also called mugwort or estafillate, and this is one that's grows more natively in New Mexico and the Southwest. The Latin is Artemisia luteosviana, and it also gets called silver sage or prairie sage, but it's closely related to the mugwort that I showed you before, the one that comes from Europe. One thing you can tell about all mugworts is when you smell them, they have this, I just say, a mugworty smell. It's kind of bitter, kind of aromatic, really yummy. And what I like about this, well, there's a lot of things I like about this mugwort, but in the Latin binomial for mugwort is Artemisia, which is the goddess of the moon, the Greek goddess of the moon. And it's such a silvery plant, you can see how it have this affinity with the moonlight and, glowing in the moon. So this one's a lot more silvery than the other mugwort that I showed. But I'm enjoying growing this one in my Southwest garden because it's a native and pretty drought tolerant.
And what is this one?
This plant has many different names. It gets called red sage, hummingbird sage. The botanical is Salvia gregii. In Spanish, it's called mirto, M-I-R-T-O. And this plant, as far as I know, is documented in the herbal codex, the Codex Bandeano de la Cruz, which is the oldest herbal document of the American continents. There's a lot I could say about that, but it's been around, this plant, and in use for hundreds and thousands of years. It's one that's used a lot traditionally in curanderismo for limpias, for baths. It has a really sweet aromatic scent, and it just is yummy and delicious, and not necessarily to eat, but to use as a medicine. Like I love it again because it grows well in dry climates. It grows great in California, like big bushes, and it also does well here in New Mexico. Like I know a traditional remedy from Mexico for children having nightmares is just to do a bath with this plant, with mirto, and then put a little bit of mirto under the pillow to help them calm down and to not have nightmares and just to be happier children. So this is a wonderful plant, and it's in the Salvia family, or Salvia genus, which is the whole genus of plants we call sage. Okay, so we're going to talk about this one and then this little one. So this is oregano, Just the culinary oregano that comes from the Mediterranean, often called Mediterranean oregano. And there's a lot of plants that get called oregano in Mexico, or oregano, but this one is the one that is native to Europe, although it's used and naturalized, all throughout the American continent and Mexico. I love oregano as a culinary spice, but it also has a lot of medicinal properties. It's antimicrobial, which means it could work against infections, viruses. It's very warming, it helps with digestion, and it tastes delicious. So oregano is a really nice garden plant to have, and I love growing culinary herbs because you can just add a little bit of fresh plant to like whatever you're cooking. And again, this is a really easy plant to grow. What I'm learning is if things can grow in the high desert, they can probably grow just about anywhere. So definitely in California gardens and a lot of places where it's not so hot and dry, it grows really well. This cutie. So this cutie is called epazote. In Nahuatl, it is epazotl, which means the scent of a skunk. If you smell it, it has a really strong, so the way to smell a plant is you just kind of rub the leaf and put and you'll get the oils on your hand and just put it to your nose, or you could just break off a leaf and smell it too, like with its permission. Break off a leaf and smell it. But it has a very strong, almost like kerosene or gasoline smell. I love epazote. It is indigenous plant to Mexico, and one that is very much part of the traditional herbalism. It's used a lot in cooking by just adding a few leaves of epazote to beans. Helps them not make you be so gassy. But it's also like some of my maestras, you can just chop up a little piece and add it to like eggs or rice or whatever. It's an interesting flavor, but it's a good medicine. Again, this is a strong plant, so you wouldn't want to eat tons and tons of it, because it is also used traditionally to expel worms or parasites. Another name for it is worm seed. So it has almost like a purgative effect in the body, and this is another one you wouldn't want to like drink a lot of tea or eat a lot of it if you were pregnant, because it can impact the uterus. But it's a lovely plant, and I'm really excited because it grows. It doesn't like frost, so it dies back in the frost. But I planted this one last year, and it totally came back after a winter in New Mexico. So it's showing me that it's resilient and it wants to be here, and I'm hoping its siblings grow around here. So mostly I use this one for cooking. It's also used actually a lot in limpias for cleansing. I mean, this is way too small to do a limpia. You could do a nose limpia. So I'm really happy this one came back. So epazotl, it's called. Well, in English people say epazote. So there's that plant. Be with the plant. And this is another cutie. Monarda, or wild oregano, mountain oregano, bee balm. I like to talk about it because it's different than the Mediterranean oregano, but a different plant, but it has a really similar aroma, and it can be used similarly medicinally. This is a plant that is native to parts of Mexico and North America, and has really beautiful flowers, to take another image when it's flowering, that attract bees. This is one of my favorite plants for colds and flus, or whenever you need to like knock off a sore throat or bronchitis. It's a very spicy, very pungent tea, and it will kind of knock those critters out. It smells good. Again, you can scratch and sniff, pet it. Okay, so this cutie baby right here. In English, we call it nettle or stinging nettle. In Spanish, ortiga. And why stinging nettle? Because actually, I just got stung petting it. It has tiny, tiny little hairs on the side that, when you brush against the skin, actually causes like a reaction, like a contact dermatitis reaction, that you'll get like red, bumpy hives. It's actually very similar compound in the sting that is in the sting of ants. So it will sting you. I will say, since we're talking about stinging, that the stinging, although it may hurt, it's actually very therapeutic. In a lot of cultures, there's practices of intentionally stinging oneself, especially on joints where there's pain or swelling. And it actually helps to kind of alleviate the pain by something that's called contra-irritant therapy. So you create another like irritation that gets healing and deeper in the tissue. So stinging nettles is a wonderful plant. Besides that it stings you, not everybody's up to being stung. It's what I call like a vitamin, multivitamin in a plant. It has so many vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So just by incorporating nettles into your diet or into your herbal, what you consume as an herb, it can actually bring a lot of benefit to your body. So the nettles we can make as a tea. You can make it as a tincture. I love cooking with it, so you can add it to soups or stews or anything that you cook. Once you heat it up, the sting actually goes away, so it's not like you're going to sting your mouth by eating it. It makes a great pesto, and it likes to grow in a lot of different environments. In California, you would see it growing just about everywhere. Here in my New Mexico garden, I have it in a shadier area just so that it will get established well. Oh, there's a little cute bug on it. Oops, flew away. So nettles, great one to have. Oh, and when you take nettles, it has so many benefits. It will make your hair and your nails stronger. It will help with your energy level, with digestion, with things like urinary tract conditions. It's what we call like a blood cleanser. So it really helps pull out impurities from the blood and out of the body, or what we call alternative in herbalism. But it's also a really good tonic, meaning that it's an herb that you can just take regularly every day just to build up all the goodness in your body. Next to nettles is another of my faves. This is one of the first plants I ever worked with. It's called skullcap. And skullcap is a really beautiful herb for helping to calm and soothe the nervous system. So when I first was introduced to this plant, like 30 plus years ago, it's when I was having a hard time sleeping. So someone recommended a skullcap tincture, and I was really impressed at how it could just relax my mind and body enough to be able to fall asleep and have a good sleep. So it's what we call an herbal nervine, which means it's a nourishing tonic to the nerves and the nervous system. And skullcap, has, in strong amounts and higher doses, it can be very sedative. It can help relax and help us fall asleep. But it also is good for when we're really kind of angry or agitated. One of my teachers said it was a good plant for people who fly off the handle easily. I mean, of course, they're not going to take their herbs, but and it's such a pretty one. It has this lovely flower and just a really sweet plant, very gentle. It's in the mint family. One of my faves, skullcap. A lot of plants here. So now I'm going to talk about another one of my favorite plants, which, if you've noticed, I have many favorite plants. Yarrow. Achillea millefolium, often, or sometimes known in Spanish as milflor or milrama. It's a plant that grows on so many continents and on Mother Earth, though not seen natively. It has a lot of uses wherever it's been, wherever it grows. People who live around it have many, many uses. I love it to grow it in my garden because it's an incredible first aid plant. Like one of the traditional uses and still modern uses is it's a really good plant for stopping bleeding. You can just take a little leaf and kind of chew on it and then put it on the place where there's the wound. And, and if it was someone else's cut, I would have them chew on it so it's their saliva. Or you could use a tea or a tincture. Actually, my partner the other day had a horrible laceration in her hand, and we got some yarrow, and she was literally like blood was dripping on her hand, which actually makes me feel faint. But I managed to get her the yarrow tincture, and we put it on a cotton ball, and she put it on the wound, and it really helped the bleeding stop. So yarrow has many medicinal uses throughout the body. It's really a medicine chest in and of itself. It's a really great plant also for energetic boundaries and protection. So I like to use it that way as a flower essence to just kind of create like a stronger bubble around me. So like my energy, others' energies don't come into me and mine doesn't bleed out into the world. So it's a really great remedy for people who tend to be like oversensitive or psychic sponges or pick up a lot of energy from the world around them. And I think it's especially important right now because there's so much energy, traumatic, hard energy in the world. And so just to maintain the integrity of our own energy bubble, a curandera, I think it was Doña Doris, taught that you can also use yarrow, like a bath of yarrow, if you want to clear out energy from ex-lovers. So it also has like releasing the energies that we don't want in us anymore properties. So those are some of the more magical properties, but it also has a lot of physical property. And this plant, it did exist in Mexico before Spanish contact, and has also in the Codex Bandeano de la Cruz, it mentions it. Next plant is ruda, or rue. And this plant is just about to bloom. It has these really cute yellow flowers. And this is one in curanderismo. It's a very commonly used plant. I would say one of the top plants that people work with. In Mexico, although it is not native to Mexico, it comes from North Africa and Mediterranean climates. But it is a very powerful plant for spiritual cleansings, or what we say limpias. It also has a very strong flavor or smell, like a really, it's how would I describe the smell of ruda? It's kind of sharp and pungent and kind of like forceful. So this is used a lot. We use it in limpias. It's a great cleanser and protector of all kinds of energies and entities and things you want to release, including like our own energies that we're trying to release. Like say we're holding on to a lot of anger or jealousy or resentment. Working with ruda can be really beneficial. I will say, word of warning is that because it's such a strong plant, the ruda leaves have some oils, essential oils in them that when you touch it to your skin and in combination with sunlight, it actually can give you a really horrible rash. And I learned this because I was working on a client who was actually a friend. I gave her this limpia with ruda outside, and I was rubbing it all over her stomach, and the next day she called me and she's like, it's like poison oak is on my stomach. So I learned how to be respectful and careful, respectful of the power of plants and careful knowing that some plants you have to know how to use them safely. So I would say with ruda, like if you're going to do it as a limpia, don't rub the plant on your skin directly, especially if you're outside. And if you do it inside, you may just want to wash it off afterwards. I think some people are more sensitive to it than others, but I'll use it. I'll put like just a little bit of it in a bundle and just use it over clothes. It's a very powerful plant, and but an incredible ally and a nice one to grow in your garden. So this cutie is rosemary, romero. A plant native to the Mediterranean, but has naturalized and grows pretty well across North America, Mexico, and really one of the primary plants also used in curanderismo, often for limpias. We will cut. This is a baby rosemary, romero. I planted it about a year ago, and it was this small, so it will grow into a big bush, and I'm so grateful that rosemary does well in this high desert climate, because it's a plant that I use a lot. So when we use it for limpias, and a bigger bush, I would just clip a lot of branches about this high and make a little bit of a bundle, and then you can use that bundle to sweep the body for limpias. Another lovely warming aroma, very pungent, kind of spicy. Rosemary is also great as a medicinal herb. You can take it as a tea, really beneficial for the digestion. You can also make a lot of body products with rosemary. It's really good for the hair, like as a hair rinse, especially for dark hair. It almost will like kind of enrich the dark color of the hair, because the tea gets really dark. And you can use it in cooking. So I love to have fresh rosemary around, and I'll cut a few sprigs and throw it on chicken, or pasta sauce or whatever recipe needs rosemary. It's always lovely to have fresh rosemary around. Also really good for baths or baños, so we can make a strong tea of rosemary and use it to bathe our body, to release energy, to do whatever ceremony, a healing ceremony we're doing for ourselves. So I love rosemary because it grows so easily and abundantly in so many different climates. And so I think it's just a plant that, if you can cultivate it, it's definitely one to grow and to build a relationship with. Oh, and people also bake with rosemary. I've had students who've made like rosemary shortbread, and you can add it to bread. So now I'm getting hungry thinking about rosemary. That's romero.